Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss the Texas Chain Saw Massacre from 1974, starring Marilyn Burns, Alan Denziger, Paul A. Parshane, I don't know if I said that right, William Vale, Terry McMinn, Edwin Neal, Jim Cito, Gunnar Hansen, and John Dugan, and directed by Toby Hooper. Now, I have seen the remakes before. I've seen the 2003, the beginning, and the 3D one that came out, but the other ones I have not seen. I'm going to be a complete newbie to this series. So, let's get into the movie, shall we? We start with the narration as well as photographs being taken place on August 18th, 1973. And these shots are very horrifying with dead bodies, and both viewings it freaked me out. Then we move on to 5 teenagers driving through Texas. Sally, played by Marilyn Burns, her brother Franklin, played by Paul A. Partain, I don't know if I said that right, please forgive me, who's crippled in this movie. Jerry, played by Alan Danziger, I don't know if I said that right either, please forgive me. Kirk, played by William Vale, and Pam, played by Terry McMinn, who are such good characters, well, sort of, until they get killed, and Toby Hooper does a good job for making me like these characters, unlike Sally, including the monsters, which I'll get to later in the show, but first they drive to a cemetery to visit their grandfather's grave, who died before this movie ever starts, and I like the fact we understood who these characters are as far as relationships are concerned. Then we move on to a slaughterhouse where Sally and Franklin's uncle worked at, and they pick up a hitchhiker, bad idea by the way, with the Scar, played by Edwin Neal, who is absolutely fucking nuts, out of his mind. And I mean the character, I'm not sure about the actor, but the character I mean, and he cuts himself in the arm, and I thought, as you get rid of this guy. And then he takes a picture of Franklin without permission and puts it on fire as he cuts Franklin's arm. And that's when things get out of hand. And the movie also does a good job of telling people 2 things. 1, don't pick up hitchhikers. And 2, there's a ton of crazy people out there, so beware. They stop at a gas station with no gas whatsoever, and they ask where to find another gas station, and they instead go to a house that one Sally and Franklin's uncle owns and fool around, go swimming, and so on, while poor Franklin has a really hard time getting in the house, which is kind of a selfish thing to leave him behind by. But the cinematography looks bad, really bad in this movie. And there were times it was hard to understand what the characters are saying, and Franklin looks like an ass by yelling about fun and sticks his tongue out, and now the characters are just fine at this point. I think it's going to sour down with Sally, in my opinion. Kirk and Pam try to go to the swimming pool, and the sound designing sounds just as bad as the cinematography looks, but admittedly, it was the 70s. Kirk and Pam go to a house where they get inside and encounter Leatherface as he abducts them and cuts them up, which is a graphic sequence, by the way, as he puts Pam on a hook. Oof, that's gotta hurt. And how can I explain by making sense? Let's see. They're cannibals. I'm only doing that once, FYI, ladies and gentlemen, as Leatherface, or I should say, this is the thing I'm going to do one time. Cannibals! As Leatherface cuts them to death with a chainsaw, and you guessed it because of this title. Sally and Franklin and Jerry realize Kirk and Pam are missing, and Franklin is afraid the hitchhiker is after him. And Jerry goes through the trail to find Kirk and Pam while Sally and Franklin talk to Sally. Sounded kind of pissed off as Jerry arrives at the house, and he goes inside for what reason? As he gets abducted and killed by Leatherface. As Jerry discovers where Kirk and Pam are at, And this is as a horror movie is chilling and freaky at the time. Admittedly, I got the chills when Leatherface puts Pam on the hook, like I sort of brought up earlier. Sally and Franklin are the only ones left. They call for Jerry, as it got on my nerves after a while. While Franklin suggests help at a gas station, as they honk the horn quite a bit and they can't leave, and they argue about who gets the flashlight, and Sally and Franklin go find Jerry. And Sally is now getting on my last nerves, as she's being really demanding about a goddamn flashlight. And they find a light as Franklin hears, and finds something coming to them, and it's Leatherface, as Franklin is cut up and killed, and Sally is on her own. Which is probably a bad idea to keep her around in general, because she was getting on my skin at this point. She goes inside the house and sees the dead bodies as Leatherface gets inside and to go after Sally, and she escapes to the gas station where they stopped at earlier in the movie. And the person running the gas station and Leatherface are family together, as well as the hitchhiker, and take her back to the house with the straitjacket. There's too much screaming going on, and she gets captured, and it was beginning to annoy the hell out of me. And they have a grandfather in this family who I assume is dead, as they feed Sally's blood to him. And remember, they're cannibals, and they're all on screaming, and they all scream with her, and that was annoying in a bad acting kind of way. And they're torturing her half to death, and they try to feed her to the dead grandfather, but she escapes, and the hitchhiker gets killed. And as a truck appears, and the truck driver throws a wrench in Leatherface as he cuts his leg, and Sally jumps on a truck, and another truck, I'll say, and Leatherface doesn't catch up, as we get some haunting shot of him swinging around the chainsaw. And as a climax, it was very haunting that there's psychos out there in the 1970s. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 6.1 out of 10. Sally was a tad bit annoying, but other than that, I liked the characters that died and Leatherface himself. The second half of the movie did kind of annoy the crap out of me, as it was horrifying at times, but I like what Tobe Hooper does with the material, despite the sound and cinematography was bad, but I still enjoyed the movie as it was. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I'll be back with Texas Chain Saw Massacre 2. And until next time,